Hello and welcome to the Happiness Is podcast with me, your host, Bruce Aitchison from Happiness is Egg-Shaped. And today is going to be a lot of fun. I don't often guarantee that, but today I'm guarantee you it's going to be a lot of fun. This rugby player is full of nonsense, is able to laugh at themselves and laugh at others, has played at the highest level, international rugby player, has a voice, has a platform, is willing and able to speak out, is very well respected, and I'm absolutely delighted that she's made some time to come and speak to me on this podcast. I'm not sure where this is going to go, and you know what? That's kind of exciting. So without any more time wasting, please welcome Anna Banana Caplice. Hello.
Jeepers, absolutely no pressure there now for this is like, are you not entertained at the end of this to the listeners? But yeah, thanks for having me. Let's have some fun.
I'm so happy with this. Now, everything I know about you, I'm struggling to work out where to start. So I'm going to start with now. What's going on now for you? Because so much has changed in such a short space of time.
Yeah, it has. Not without, the last couple of years of COVID and everything has changed everything anyway. And kind of off the back of that, things didn't return to the way they were. And yeah, I've decided to hang up my international boots and not keep banging on that door. I think my time is done there. And I've just left Gloucester, who I've been playing with for the last season. Now I haven't fully closed the door yet. I've put a small little wedge under the door there because because actually at the moment, and this is how I kind of explain things to Gloucester, is that I need some time off. I need some time away. Actually next week I'm going on a cycle along the Danube River for 2 weeks. I just have a one-man tent, sleeping bag, going on a bike, cycle along the Danube for 2 weeks. That's my kind of time out and time to myself and time to think about things. After that, I'm coming back to Ireland and I'm coaching here over the summer, which I can't wait to get back into. I love coaching and I want to be a coach, in the long run. So I'm really looking forward to doing that. I'm going to go to the World Cup. At least that's the plan anyway. I want to, initially, weirdly, because Ireland didn't qualify, it's been a really sore point. It's been really hard to think about the World Cup, and I've so many friends in other nations from playing in the Prem and playing Barbarians and playing all over the world. I have so many friends that will be playing at that World Cup, and initially I kind of wanted to ignore the fact that this World Cup was happening, but I've somehow managed to kind of change my tune, and I want to be there. Like I know too much. I've too much love for women's rugby to miss out on this, like the biggest event, in rugby for women. So I want to be there. Sadly, it won't be in a playing capacity, but I've got a lot of other things to offer. I can entertain crowds at halftime with my ukulele. Well, that's not actually the plan, but I do want to be there. And after that, and this is what I said to Gloucester, I've kind of deliberately not made any plans so that any opportunities that come my way, I can take. So I studied languages, and I want to, after playing for Ireland and playing in the Prem for so long, I haven't exactly used my degree as I would have liked to. So I'd love to play a season in France, play a season in Spain. I've got connections in Argentina. I want to go back there. I've got links in Australia, which I know isn't the language side of things, but it's still a nice option to have. And I've got a lot of connections that I'm now free to use because I'm not trying to play for Ireland anymore. I can kind of go wherever the wind blows. So I'm finally a free spirit again.
Now, I didn't know how to start. Now, where do I go? We've got ukulele, we've got halftime show, we've got traveling the world, there's so much to you, Anna, and I absolutely love it. Now, can I just read you this because this made me cry? playing for Ireland has meant the absolute world to me. Every second I've spent on that pitch with my teammates has been nothing short of amazing, and I'm heartbroken to say that there won't be another. The roller coaster that led me to my first green jersey and the journey that ensued, I will never forget. It is an honour to be blessed with so many wonderful memories in green, singing the anthems, running onto the pitch with my friends, hearing the crowds, dragging each other through the tough times in training, post-match meals with the opposition, sing songs on buses, changing room dance-off, meeting young fans, not wanting to get changed out of your jersey at the end of the game because you want the feeling to last forever. That is close to poetry. And I'm getting a little bit emotional here because I loved the changing room. The changing room's the thing I miss the most of playing. And I didn't play to anything the level that you played. But that last bit, you didn't want to take the jersey off at the end of the game because you wanted the feeling to last forever. So to then say, I'm done, that must have taken courage, bravery. You must have changed your mind 100 times. How did you go through that process?
You're right, it was really difficult. I think that it was coming for a while because last year, very disappointingly, I wasn't included in the Six Nations, and I really felt like I should have been, and I felt like I should have been there. You know, like anyone who's missed out in selection, you're not going to be like, okay, that's fine, and just get on with things. You know, I took it really, really hard, and you know, it affects who you are. You know, I couldn't sleep at night, and I couldn't be myself. I couldn't. I felt like I'd let everyone down. I felt like I'd let myself down, and it all comes back to, you know, selection, and because that coach hasn't selected you, the value you have of yourself can, and it certainly did with me, diminish into thin air. And I remember going after not being involved in that Six Nations and like trying so desperately to claw my way back in and do whatever I could. And I remember going to a friend's wedding with my best friends who aren't my rugby friends, and I had the best weekend ever. It was down in the west coast of Kerry. We had an amazing weekend. I was so happy, and I had, on the way home, I was like, oh my God, I haven't felt like this in so long, and it's because I have been so heartbroken because of rugby. And that's fine, you know, it comes with it, but you have to at some stage remember who you are and remember that there is more to life. So it was kind of last year that when that was happening, that I was like, okay, you're going to have to take that power off those people at some stage, you know, and put it back in your hands about how you value yourself and who you are and things like that. So after that experience last year, I was invited back in to train for the autumn internationals, and I was actually quite surprised because at that stage I'd missed not only the Six Nations but also the qualifiers, which I can barely even talk about now. I was surprised to be invited back into Ireland. I had been not selected for so long. Was really like forcing myself to accept it. So being brought back into Ireland and then playing in the November internationals just gone was amazing, and I thought that I wouldn't get to play again. So when I wasn't selected again this year for the Six Nations, like, I cannot go through this process again of trying to. So I actually, the moment my phone rang, even before I spoke to the Irish coach this year, the moment it rang, I was like, this is it. I'm not, because my entire kind of Irish career has been like this. I've been dropped a lot. It's just been the nature of it for me. And I've performed really well then when I've played for Ireland. So at least I can say that I'm really proud that I did that. And every time I wore the jersey, I'm proud of the performances I put in. But especially then with COVID, I don't train as well as I play. I'm very much a learner when I train, and I train kind of I train differently. It's like I'm a teacher, you know. I see kids learn differently in the classroom. I'm a different kind of trainer to other people. I've never trained as well as I've played, and actually I prefer that because, you know, I want to play. Like, when I play, it means everything is put out there, but when I train, that's not the case. And and sadly, my coaches haven't really been able to see that. And after COVID, which was like training for a whole year, it went against me a lot, I think. There's just been a lot to take in terms of disappointments over the years. 2017 World Cup was really disappointing for me as well. So I just have finally decided that, like, I would keep knocking that door down forever. Like, I would have gone again, only that I know now I just have to take my own happiness back in my own hands. And it's not like, okay, woohoo, I'm happy now. I'm still coping with it. I'm still trying to come to terms with the fact that I'll never play for Ireland again. So it's been really hard, but I know that it has to be this way. Like, it has to end for every player at some stage, and everyone's story is going to be different. And I think of a lot of players who've had to retire through injury and retire through non-selection, like me. And it's never easy. I mean, if you get to come out when you want to and say, yes, I've done it all now, I'm happy with that, you are like one of the luckiest people in the world, because it's so rare that can happen. So unfortunately for me, it hasn't finished the way I would have liked to.
So let's fast forward to Anna Banana, the coach, making a selection. Do you think this experience is going to make you a better coach?
Yeah. And I often think about it. I'm like, how do I feel like coaches get it wrong so often in terms of delivering back the message. How can you like destroy someone so quickly and easily that you've so much power in your hands? Like, I'm just taking myself as an example, but this is how it is. You put everything on the line. You've sacrificed so much time. You're training so hard, and you've put so much into it. And then for a single person to just kind of go, and the decision is made. It's not like a race where you run the race and the fastest people win. It comes down to how a coach is thinking, how they're feeling, and they've so much power. And I don't think that coaches realize that, how they can affect people's self-worth and value, and it's not going to be easy, and I don't think it's supposed to be easy, and I don't think it's going to be as clear cut as like, putting an arm around someone. But I do think that I've learned a lot about the communication and just the feedback, and I think that using stats and using your coaching network, I think that so often I've just felt so hard done by with kind of dishonesty in feedback as well. So I've learned a lot. If I become a coach, I know that I'm not going to get it right every time, but I definitely feel, and that's kind of the way I am as a teacher as well, just like listening and understanding and giving like clear communication about like what the decision is and why that's the way. And sometimes being honest, like in terms of like, look, I just had to make this selection today. And I never really heard that from a coach that was like, look, I just had to. There was always like, look, you're not good enough. I'm like, I know I'm good enough. That's not true. You're telling me I'm not good enough. That's not true. Like, give me something to work with here so that I can, work on it or improve, or, constantly moving the goalposts and saying like, look, this wasn't good enough, but how come it was good enough for another player? Or, and players talk, and players know what other players' feedback is as well. So it's not easy to get right for a coach, but I do think that it has to be dealt with more sensitively. And I would like to think that as a coach that I'll be able to learn or apply what I've learned in my playing career to that.
When you made this statement about finishing, and this is something I come to often, I mean, we put so much into the result. So Leinster were obviously disappointed because they lost the European final. Ireland are disappointed because they lost the playoff game against Scotland, and they don't. The result means everything. In your statement, you've not mentioned a result. You've not mentioned winning or losing. You've mentioned being with people, memories, sounds, sights, almost
Mm-hmm.
you've mentioned all those feelings that are so important.
Mm-hmm.
How do you use that platform you have, and you use it brilliantly? You're serious, but you can deliver funny. You've got such a great way and manner. How do you use that to get kids that you teach, maybe, or that are looking at your social media, to buy into not just rugby, but to sport, to being involved in something?
I think that it's funny. I like to talk about this, and it was actually when I was playing Barbarians, an example of this came up. When you play for Barbarians, at least with the women, I've played twice now, and both of them were two like massive highlights of my career. One of the most amazing things about that week is that you present your own story, how you got into rugby, and it is the most incredible experience to sit down and share yours and then listen to everyone's story around the room. Girls from all over the world, everyone's had very different but in ways very similar journeys. And one thing that was said is that Katie Daly McLean was talking about her own daughter, and she said, she put it in a funny way. She's like, I don't care if she doesn't play for England, and everyone kind of laughed. And it was just funny how she put it, but she was right. Like, you talk about success. Are you only successful if you make it all the way, like to play for Ireland or England or whatever? Is that what success is? Or are you successful if you rock up week in, week out for your club? You absolutely love it. You love your friends, you're fit, you're healthy, and you just love rugby and you love what you do. Like, that is success. You're successful in that. You don't have to be like, oh, well, I didn't make it. That's so what? There's people who made it and they're not happy. It could be miserable. So success is being like just happy in yourself and what you've achieved, which could be like going along to training every week, and just that pressure of like playing for, like the point that Katie Daly McLean made was like, I just want my daughter to be happy. And that's it. And like I think as a coach, and we're often brought in to give like talks to schools and things like that. And I ask like who I love going and chatting to girls in schools and boys as well. Like I love, coaching both boys and girls, but the girls especially, like I just get such a buzz from. Like I ask them, who is sporty? And like, the sporty ones that put up their hands, and the ones that are kind of like do PE and enjoy it might kind of half put up their hands. And some girls have their hands down like, okay, what do you do? How do you keep fit? I'm like, I dance. Amazing. That's a sport. I walk my dog. Great. That's being active. Like, that's really important. Stop, disassociating yourself from the sporty girls because you're not doing a team sport. I don't like using the word sporty because I think that then you have put yourself in a box of like, oh, well, I'm not sporty, so I don't know where to fit in terms of activity. And I do think things like, CrossFit and yoga and things that have kind of managed to kind of get the attention and kind of have engaged girls who aren't like traditional sporty, because the word sporty implies that you're in a team sport. You've played with the boys in primary school and you can kind of kick a ball around with the boys. Like, that's not what it is. And when I go and I speak to girls, I'm like, you're all sporty in your own right, because if you weren't active, you'd be incredibly unhealthy. And if you're not active at all, well, then you need to find something that makes you this new type of sporty. This like, forget that old cliche of like, team sports, big huddle, the sporty girls over there, the non-sporty girls over here. No, everyone needs to be active. And like, rugby is, when my team started here in Mallow, when I was 17, so many girls came down to train, and even the non-sporty ones because everyone else was going and they came along and they loved it. Now, not all of them stuck with it, but some of them did. And I think that was when I already knew that I loved rugby so much, because I used to watch Munster growing up, and I fell in love with rugby through watching Munster. But when I started and I saw that firsthand, that like my non-sporty, and again I'm using the phrase that I shouldn't be, but that's how it was then, my non-sporty friends came down to play, I was like, oh my God, this is class. Like I can't believe that this has somehow engaged them. But rugby is that sport where, and it's such a cliche, but I believe it, and this is what I will use, in my coaching philosophies going forward, is that there is room for everyone on the pitch in terms of body shape, size, speed, your skills, and what you can deliver, like, as a, using your body in a physical way. And it doesn't have to be this old cliche of like sporty. So I don't even know if that is the question that you asked, because I just rambled on there. But it's kind of that's how I feel, and I don't even know if I answered your question.
No, I love it. The Barbarians bit to it is amazing. Did Rona Lloyd mention me? No, did I get mentioned with Rona's story?
Yeah, there was a big picture of you on her.
Nice.
Yes.
Okay,
on her poster.
just checking, just making sure. Now,
but that Barbarians experience is like nothing else I've experienced, and one really interesting thing about it is, and it was a point that I made in my kind of presentation this year, is that on my first Barbarians trip, everyone, you make a little poster and you talk about your rugby journey and how you got into rugby, and almost everyone in the room, I would say 95% of people in the room, mentioned a brother or a dad who played, and that's how they got into it. And that stuck with me. Everyone, my brother played, so I played, and it was the same with me. That's how I got into it. It was the only thing that my brother did that I didn't do when I was younger, and I wanted to, but I was afraid to ask because it was so physical and all the rest. But in the second time I played for Barbarians, then I made a point of it. I was like, the last time everyone mentioned a brother, but it's slowly starting to change, and we're going to be the generation where our kids will say, I'm playing because my mom played, or my aunt played, or my, whatever. So that is something that I'm really proud of, and I really want to. I'm finding solace in that through when I think about my retirement. I'm like, well, there's still an awful lot more to do here. I'm not done yet, even though I'm not going to take the field with Ireland anymore. I know that I can continue to be someone who inspires someone to start rugby, even though I'm a woman. I can make that happen.
Yeah, I love that, and I've heard and I've read that you've said, I'm not done, that I've still got lots to offer, even though I'm not pulling on the shirt. I have to admit, when I knew you were a teacher, I was laughing, because I'm a teacher, right? And sometimes the kids will ask about things that go on outside of school, and it must be quite cool when they find out what you do and where you've done it. And like, do the kids take an interest, or are you just the teacher that's entertaining them about the Jubilee?
It's interesting because in Gloucester, I have a really nice puffy jacket that I got from Gloucester this year that I was wearing throughout the winter. So I'm a supply teacher at the moment. I'm actually a qualified secondary languages teacher, but I haven't done that in a while because marking languages homework takes too much time, and I don't have that time. So that is the end of that debate. I'm a supply teacher, but also supply frees me up to if I'm absolutely dead and I need a day of rest, I tell my agent I'm not free today. Or really hungover. Anyway. No, I'm joking. I didn't have to do that at all this year. So being supply means that you go and you visit a different class every day. Sometimes you could be in 2 or 3 classes a day, but they're primary school kids, and sometimes they'll spot your Gloucester jacket, and they'll ask about it. And then sometimes it kind of comes up naturally. Like one day I was, when you're a supply teacher, you meet the teacher in the morning, they give you the lesson, and you just have to bluff your way through it and just pretend that you know what you're teaching. that happens a lot when it comes to maths. But to be honest, the kids are really smart and they're able to, give me the answers. So I love it. When the kids are good, I love it. And sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Oh yeah, there was a lesson I was teaching one day about kind of perceptions of jobs. Do you think a pilot is usually male or female? Do you think a mechanic is usually male or female? There was a kind of a discussion around that, and they had great discussion around it. They were brilliant. They were only like 10 years old, these kids. And I told them, I was like, this isn't my real job. I was like, job I use usually, but I just kind of didn't need to know that.
We get that, miss. We can see that.
And, and I told them that I was a rugby player. They're like, wow. And they thought it was so cool. And that was a really nice conversation around that. But another day, there was a kid, I actually tweeted about this. There was a kid who loved rugby and he spotted my Gloucester jacket. So, wow, do you play for Gloucester? Like, yeah. He was like, for the women's team. I was like, no, for the men's team. And he's like, what? And he was really confused. But here's the kid that was like, I tweeted about it a while ago. He did a show and tell at the end of the day, and he showed his little medal, and he was like, I won this in a rugby tournament. Like, oh wow, well done. Did you score any tries? He's like, yeah. Did you know that you can jump over people trying to tackle you? So I just jump over the people trying to tackle me. And rugby was like, oh wow. It was like, where was the referee? He was like, he was in the middle of the pitch tying someone's shoelace. And I was roaring, laughing, and they had no idea why it was so funny. But that same day, like, he was really fascinated because he obviously loves rugby, and he was telling everyone, like, oh, she's on the telly, she plays for Ireland, she's really famous. And then another kid put up his hand, he was like, do you drive a Lamborghini? I was like, lol.
Yeah, I'm just here doing some outreach work. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. I was like, oh, you've a lot more to learn. I was like, well, yes, I play. I was like, but, they don't pay us that much in the women's games. Like, that's why I'm here, help out teachers who need help when they're not well and I can't be in school. So, I need another job. And they kind of stop understanding at that point. But at the end of that day, every one of the 30 kids in the classroom asked for my autograph. They're signing, and I was like, I don't know if this is allowed. But that was fun. And like, yeah, it's funny when it's just supply kids, and they're primary kids as well, so they'll forget like the next day. But with secondary school kids, it's been more interesting, and you can really get through to like some of the teenagers who want to do sport or want to do rugby, or they kind of find you a bit more relatable then. And I've had some really great chats with some of the kids. Like, I love working with teenagers, and rugby is a really nice way to kind of connect with them through it, and especially the girls, because at that age they're starting to drop out of sport, so it's good to for them to have a role model that has stuck with it and still plays.
Awesome. I absolutely love it. Now, Munster kind of let you down a little bit recently with the recognition of the women's game. And Munster's obviously where you grew up and fell in love with rugby, and it looked like things were going well. And then I think the way it was put was at the 11th hour, they voted against it. How does that impact on the growth of the game, the image of the game? Can it change? What's your view on that? And do you have an input to that?
Yes, that was very disappointing. They withdrew a motion to allow women's AIL teams to have senior status. It's kind of a lot more to it, so I won't kind of go into all the details around it, but it was essentially kind of a signal to say we know that the men's and the women's games, they're not on an equal level yet, but as far as I'm aware, as far as I believe, clubs and provinces and rugby, they should be taking all the right steps to allow it to happen. So we're not yet at an equal stage in anything, but the people with power are actually still putting roadblocks there. And that really angered me because, like, look, I know that the women's game is behind the men's game, but we're never going to get there if you keep putting the roadblocks in the way. Like, we can't. That was an easy thing to do. That's not affecting the anyone. It's a good progressive move forward. So to have it stopped is just, it just was so disappointing and so frustrating. And like, you have so many people who are like ready to support the women's game, but then there's just these constant reminders of, we don't want that just yet. Like, well, congratulations and well done to the women, aren't you great? But we're just going to hang on to the power for a little bit longer here because we're not quite ready to allow you to build to that parity. There's a lot of that, like one step forward, two steps back, two steps forward, one step back. This constant like things cropping up that are just kind of slowing down the progress. And like, we learned a lot, and the rugby community learned a lot when the men's game went professional. But I think that the same mistakes are kind of allowing to happen, even though we learned them already. Why is there just kind of, why are we trying to do things the same way as they were done before, when actually we've learned an awful lot, and we've got massive opportunity to do things differently and do things well now to professionalize the women's game, and it's just coming so slowly that I get weary from it. Like when I have like, and this is probably kind of how I cropped up in your timeline recently, was just the whole James Haskell debate, and how there's still people who are not only, look, if you're disinterested in the women's game, okay, that's fine. Whatever. We don't need to hear from you. That's fine. You're a toenail in my eyes. But whatever. There's people with profile kind of like stepping on our heads to stop the growth still. And, that might seem like, James Haskell still sees no problem with that post that, his podcast put out. And other players, like other players, people and men, really prominent men in the game, like, saying like, I don't see a problem with this. Like, of course you don't. You never had these challenges. You never had someone standing in your way so much that of course you don't see this as a problem. But you're also not listening to the people who are going through this and have a certain way of feeling about this, and kind of arguing that we shouldn't feel angry about this post. Like, but you don't know what we've been through to get to this point. So how could you think that you could tell us how to feel about this? Like, if listeners to this haven't heard, like, there was a post that was put out about the top capped front rows in English rugby. To be the most capped English player as a woman is a phenomenal. I still can't believe it. I still can't believe, how has she achieved that? I played for Ireland for like 10 years. I have 16 caps. To be the most capped, like, that's a phenomenal achievement. And I was speaking to someone recently who doesn't know much about rugby, but when I said this to him, I was like, oh my God, really? A woman achieved that? Yes. So he would never have known that from this post. So how are people going to know these things? And like, if are you going to just keep it that way, even though more women might catch up and pass out the men's side of things? Like, if you are talking about the men's side of things, just specify. Very easy. And if you're talking about rugby in general, include all codes. Do you know? So sorry, I kind of, again, going off on a rant there, but it's all part of it. That we're seeing at the moment.
Your passion is what makes people want to listen and engage, and it's just awesome. And Rocky's become a buddy of ours, and we've had her on the pod, and she's such a great role model and still putting so much into the game. But she would say it's still not as much as she's taken out of the game, because she just loves it so much. She's such a legend.
But if you think about this, and this is how I was thinking about it. Okay, so why did that podcast make that infographic? Why did they make it? It's to give people information, and it's probably to celebrate those players. I'm sure that those players are very honored to be on that list. Their families are very honored that, you know, it's even if they've retired from the game, they still hold that trophy and that crown. Rocky deserves to be on that list, as do her family deserve to feel happy that she's on that list. She's now retired from the game. She deserves that accolade. You can't just leave her out of it because you felt like it, which is essentially what it is. Now we won't bother including her. If you were talking about the men, you put a picture of who's in the picture. Dylan Hartley and who's the other person in the picture?
Be Jason Leonard, was it?
Yeah. And it was actually, I found this kind of funny. Neil Back, who is not a popular man in Munster, was arguing with me.
He's not a popular man in Munster. He's really not a popular man.
No, he's not. He was arguing with me. Well, actually, I didn't realize I was commenting on his post. He made a point, but I wrote back to somebody else underneath, and then he wrote back to me. So I kind of got into this kind of conversation with Neil Back about it, and he was like, but in the, you know, I said, most capped international forwards. That makes this post factually incorrect because she is an England forward. He said not in the context of the post, but that's only from your understanding. There's only two people in that picture. What about the picture of all the other players? How do you know that each of those players is a man? How would you know that Rocky was a woman? Because actually, you know, it's not clear. It's only clear from your understanding and what you perceive the listeners and the followers of that podcast to already have an understanding of. So what you're actually doing is blocking off new listeners or people who want to learn, or people who you're segregating people who have understanding from those who don't, I believe. And her name should be on that list. Unless you're talking about men, her name should be on the list. Most international capped England front rows, her name should be at the top of the list.
Yeah, amen. Yeah, I tell you what, you've had a couple of mic drop moments already, and we've still got time to go. So this is, I love it.
We've only 2.5 minutes left. Hurry on.
Now, there's, as I keep saying, there's so much to talk about. Now I'm gonna come back to this post that you made, because this was the last bit made me cry, and this bit made me laugh. People always ask me what it's like to wear the Irish jersey. I can't quite describe it. That bit makes me laugh because you then go on to describe it. When I look down at the crest of my chest, I always thought my family, my clubs, Munster, listening to Fields After Ryback, the sound of 1,000 footsteps coming to Croke Park and Lansdowne Road, and then you say the one that just kills me. I thought of Riverdance and Eurovision.
Yeah, it's true. I know you're laughing, but it's true.
Can you Riverdance?
Oh yeah. Try and stop me. Like, do you know? But I'll describe this. I'll describe this feeling to you. Okay, so I love Eurovision, and it gives me a memory of like being in my front room with my brothers and sisters when I was small, like cheering for Ireland. And Ireland, I'm a bit of a Eurovision nerd. I don't know if you know this, but Ireland has won the Eurovision most out of any other country that has entered the Eurovision. That's why I was a bit nervous this year, because England the UK almost won, which would have brought them on equal terms, which would have been 7 times each. So I was kind of like, phew, thank God that didn't happen, because we still hold the trophy for most times that we won it. But it makes me very, very proud to be Irish. And those songs always remind me of it. And Riverdance was created as like an opening act for one of the competition, the Eurovision competitions that was hosted in Ireland. And something about Riverdance, like when the music comes on, like at a house party, or everyone's Irish is up, straight arms, straight face, everyone bouncing off each other, like, and it's such a cultural reference, like, it's become part of, like, I'm also a massive Father Ted nerd. I don't know if you've watched Father Ted much, but
Oh yeah.
that references Riverdance. Riverdance music was played in Derry Girls recently, and it made people like really happy, and it's just about being Irish, and Irish culture and memories of growing up as a proud young Irish girl. I think of that. When you're about to go out and play a game for Ireland, you think of a lot of things and you're very nervous. And I just think of things like that make me feel proud to be Irish, and that make me happy as well. And then that kind of leads into like singing the anthem really proudly, like, and it's weird, isn't it, that when we play sport we sing a song before we do it? Isn't that kind of weird? Like,
I had this conversation with somebody recently who was telling me that sport is the best thing. It brings people together, and I said I almost agree with you, but I think the thing that brings people together more is music. And my example was, if I go to Murrayfield, there's 67,500 people there, but only 46 of them get to play the game. But all 67,500 of us sing the anthem together at the same time. We all know the words. That is proper togetherness, cultural
yes,
bonding. Doesn't matter how much you get paid, what school you went to. That
yes,
anthem is the only time where I'm doing the same thing as Stuart Hogg, Darcy Graham, Ali Price.
yes,
That's the only time, and I absolutely love it. And I love when they show you the players when they're singing the anthem. And England players get hammered all the time because they don't seem to be singing it and all that. When you were singing, you loved that, didn't you?
yeah,
And
yeah.
and it's a proper moment that, like, you train to play the game, and you know what the line out calls are, and you know what happens if we get to an edge, and you know what happens. Do you prepare for the anthem? Does anyone say to you, listen, your emotions will do this, or you've just warmed up for 45 minutes and now you've got to stand still? Does anybody talk to you about that?
No, actually, like the kind of logistics around it, no. But the only way you know what's happening is because you've seen it on telly. I've been preparing for the anthem my whole life, like singing it at home, and in Ireland it's always interested me, like the history of Ireland and Irish rugby, and how we sing two anthems because of our turbulent history as a nation. And that really interests me, and it's something that I wanted to kind of explore with the team a lot, and kind of leading into COVID, I really wanted to take take the reins on that. And sadly I couldn't really we couldn't work something out then to do something together like that. But it's amazing, like, there's talk around, like, the Pacific nations, they get to do a haka. Well, Ireland gets to sing two anthems when we play in Dublin. And we had to have someone write a new anthem to represent everyone on the pitch. Like, I think that's amazing, and I love that side of rugby as well. And I have some friends that won't sing Ireland's call, and I've had to. What I have done in camp before is, Linda and Jungang, who was born in oh my god, I don't want to get this wrong. Cameroon. Yes, she was born in Cameroon. She, she doesn't speak Irish. She didn't grow up speaking Irish. Everyone's terrible at Irish anyway, but at least they've heard kind of Aron Aveen to kind of, go along with it for as much as this. But I remember teaching her and writing it out phonetically and going through it with her. I loved that so much, like teaching her like kind of how to sing it, and she sang it out, and it was so good. And just singing it, like the opportunity to sing it, like I think for my first few caps, the thing about Ireland's call is it's very difficult. It's written in a male, to suit a male voice, I reckon. Same as the jerseys, same as the boots, whatever. The anthem is the same. So with Ireland's call, right, if you want to, you've got three options. You can sing it in the low octave, but hard to sing out loud then. because it's, you know, it's very low and you can sing it in the, you can sing it in the high octave, and you have to absolutely blast it out then, because if you try and go high and you know, the camera is near you and you miss the note, it can be very embarrassing. Or the third option is you just sing it out of key. I go for this option 2, and which means that you kind of got no choice. You have to just go for it. But I'm happy with that anyway, because it's a long process leading up to the game. You know, you come out, you line up, they sing a song, we sing 2 songs. You might meet, you know, the president or something on the pitch. Like, there's just so much going on that it's a very kind of lull moment. Like, I use the anthem as well to get myself, you know, going, like, and get myself. Actually, last weekend I played sevens in Benidorm, which was amazing. I had such a great weekend. Played with Penguins International. It was the first time a women's team played, and I was given the job of singer. And we were like, you know, in between games, you know, between sevens is a bit of a lull. I was like, right, I need a song, get everyone going. Like, so I just get up and like sing a song, and like then you're ready to go. Then you're going down to the warm up, like fired up. Like, so it's the exact same with the anthem. So I just use it. Speaking of Scotland anthem, by the way, I've never been to a game in Murrayfield. I actually, look at this. We're very Scottish today.
Oh yes.
I got that. Where did I get this? Oh, I bought this in the Starbucks at the airport when I went to Scotland and scored my first Six Nations try and got player of the match. So I really like this mug because it reminds me of that. But
that's your player of the match mug.
Yes, my trophy to myself. But do you know what I can't wait to see some days? Do you know when the piper is standing on top of the stadium and then stops playing and everyone's singing a cappella? One of the greatest moments in rugby, in sport.
Right. Well, that's a date. You just tell me when you're coming. That's done. That's done. Yeah, love it.
I'll be there.
We've got Ireland at home this year. Yeah, we've got Ireland, Wales, and Italy at home this year.
Okay.
Or this year coming. All right, deal done, sorted.
Put in the calendar. Yes.
Yeah, 100%. So there's still so much to go. I want to hear about languages and travel. You're saying you're now a free spirit or a free agent or whatever it is, and you're willing to go. What is it about that excites you? Because there's lots of people who would find that really challenging, really, you know, it's not for them. What is it that drives you to do that?
I have a really nice balance in my life in that I love people and I love meeting people and I love my friends. I love being around them, but I also love time on my own. And I get such a buzz off going to and discovering a new place on my own. I don't know why. It's always been that way, and I've been traveling on my own since I could. And I love languages, and I think it's because of that, like the doors it unlocks to go somewhere else. And I think people, you know, for example, you know, I'm going away next week on my own. I can. And I'm, you know, we'll definitely meet other people traveling and other people camping or cycling or whatever. And if I want to, I can talk to them at rugby. And if I don't want to, I don't have to. So you can kind of choose who you want to be on any given day. And you can be an extrovert or an introvert, and you can suit yourself. Like, and I just love, like, I have such a love for new places and like music, dance, food. Like, I just get such a buzz off it. Like, so before I went to Benidorm last week, you know, all the team was meeting on the Wednesday. I had to go on the Tuesday so that I could just get a sense of the place first, so I could be happy, because I actually have done that before for sevens. Especially, I've played Ireland sevens, and you know, they fly you in, you play, and you fly out, and like, you're like, oh, I've been to that place, but I didn't see it at all. Like, I don't like that. I can't get a sense of a place first. So I'll try and kind of get my own few days in a place because I just get such a buzz off it. I don't know. And where I studied in Limerick, they very much encourage travel and living abroad. So I had 2 placements abroad, and I lived in Argentina for 6 months, and then I lived in Vienna for a year, and they honestly changed my life. And that time abroad probably slowed down my progress within Irish rugby, because I was making great headway kind of leading up to that, and then I went away and it didn't get back in the Irish squad for a long time. But that was fine. It's kind of, especially as a female player, rugby isn't going to be your job. Maybe that's, going to start changing, I don't know, in the next century. But you've got to, as a female player, you have to have another passion to make you money. And I chose languages because I love it. I can't really explain it. I just absolutely love it.
You strike me, you're a teacher, and you strike me as being the absolutely ideal teacher, because I believe if you can learn a language and if you can play a musical instrument, you can learn anything. The ability to learn is there for everyone, but the desire and the resilience to learn music and other languages still blows me away. And I'm not going to say I wish I had, because I know you give people around that don't learn Irish and say they wish they had, when they could just get on with it and learn it. So I'm not going to say that in case you give me a
Not
round.
really, no. And I don't think and this is actually important. Like, a lot of people will say to me, oh my God, how do you speak so many languages? You must be so kind of talented at that, or talented in that area. Like, I remember being like the person in school, when you're in a certain subject and someone always has the answer and you're like, oh, how did they know that? And how come I don't? Like, my confidence was not good in languages in school. It was all right and I loved it and that got me by, but I wasn't like, yes, I know that. I wasn't like the teacher's pet. Like, I wasn't brilliant at it at all, but I loved it and that got me as far as it did. How I learned languages so well is by living there and being immersed in that language. And also, like, in Argentina, like, the key to learning a language, like, if you wanted to learn a language, this is what makes it difficult with Irish, because there's no like exclusive Irish town you can go to. But with Spanish, so in Argentina, I made friends with people who couldn't speak English. So I had to be like crap at it for a really long time. Like, that's what people don't like. They don't like being rubbish at things. And that's why I struggle with the kids who learn languages in school. They're like, oh, this is too difficult. I'm like, it's supposed to be difficult. You're learning a new language. You have to be rubbish at it for a really, really, really long time before you get somewhat good at it. Like, I had friends in Argentina who used to call me on the phone. They were so nice. I was like, why are they calling me? I can't even talk to them. I don't even know what they're saying. And they'd say something to me and I'd just be like, see. And then I'd hang up and be like trying to retrospectively work out what the phone call was about, because I wouldn't have a clue. But eventually I struggled through that, and I still have a Spanish that's quite decent from living there for 6 months only, but having made friends with people who couldn't speak English. And actually I joined the men's rugby team in the town that I lived in Argentina, because there was no women's team. So I just joined the men's team, and like, that was the best thing, because they couldn't really speak English. So I just made loads of friends and I used to train with them, and like, they weren't very good. They weren't that good. So I fit in quite well, and they were mad about me, and they were just like, wow, they didn't know that girls played rugby, and they were kind of surprised at how good I was. And I still talk to them. I actually sent them an Irish jersey for their clubhouse recently. I sent it about a year ago, and it came back in the post only recently.
Oh,
so I must have got the address wrong, so they still don't have it.
the boomerang shirt. But see, that's what I mean. Not everyone is taking that leap. This thirst for travel and for learning, and it's languages that you're using as your means to do that, and you've got rugby as that other thing that might get you that chance to go to France or get your chance to go somewhere else. I love that bravery. Now, how did then music come into it? Was that just, I've got some time? I mean, I don't know where you find time for this stuff, but music's obviously a passion of yours.
Yeah, well, I think, and my mom actually just walked in there a second. I was surprised she didn't come in and interrupt, because she loves doing that when I'm on a meeting or on a call. But I can hear her in the next room. But she had us all playing instruments from when we were younger. So we had a music room, a lot of, people might have a playroom or a study. We had a music room. So like the piano was in there and all of the instruments. So she just had us signed up for lessons, playing music. And like, it's just happened for me that I've always found myself amongst friends and family who love to sing and kind of are musical, and I'd love to be a little bit more into traditional Irish music. Like I don't know if you've ever been to like a traditional Irish music session. It is like the best crack, and I'd love to get into that a bit more. And sadly, I kind of didn't play that much traditional Irish music growing up, but like play the piano, flute, now the ukulele. Like I just kind of picked up the ukulele in the last few years, and I met some people after.
Of course, you play the ukulele. Of course, you play the ukulele. How much cooler can you get? Tell me. You call yourself Banana. You play the ukulele.
People think I'm really good at the ukulele. I'm not that good, and it's just the balls that you play it with, and people think that you're handy. But it's the ukulele is cool because
always go with confidence. That's my
the ukulele is cool. Yeah, the ukulele is cool because it's small, so I can bring it places, and it's good for a sing song. But then like a few of my teammates are like, that fucking ukulele again. If you're ready to hit me over the head with it. But all I want to do is sing songs. Like that's why I found it really hard in the Premiership, actually, because I used to play at Richmond and then played at Harlequins and Gloucester last season. Like sing-songing isn't a thing. Whereas any team I've played in Ireland, like the sing-song is like the pinnacle of the night. And you sing and you sing and you sing, especially the team I played with in Limerick. If we weren't so good at rugby, I would have said we were a better choir, but we were class at rugby. So I would say we were just as good of a choir. We used to sing and sing and sing. And like, we'd get a bus home from Belfast. And we'd be on the bus for like 6 hours. Song, song, song. And you go around the bus and none of this like, oh no, I can't sing. Everyone's singing. And like, it doesn't have to be good. It just has to be something that everyone like joins in on. So, I get such a buzz from that. I love it so much. And like team sports and rugby for me, like that's been a side of it that's kept me loving it as well for so long, because there's been that side of it too and the social side of it. But I eventually got the Richmond girls singing Black Velvet Band, but it took about 3 years for me to teach them one song, so I had to stop there. And
there's two things here. One is you are the ultimate barbarian rugby player. Like, make absolutely no mistake. But the second one is I'm going to get Sean to clip that feckin' ukulele and have that as my message alert on my phone, because that is just absolutely champagne. I love that. That feckin' ukulele. I'm having that. That is now my message alert. So,
that's no joke. Like that's a soft version of what they'd be saying.
I love it. So, looking into the crystal ball, because I'm aware that I've taken up so much of your time, and I could go on forever. I think I've said this to a few people. We're going to have to do a part 2, because I've just loved this. Looking into your crystal ball, right? I'm trying to work out what your kryptonite is, because it seems like you're bloody perfect. Music, sport, singing, languages, take your pick. Looking into your crystal ball, where are you in 10 years' time? Are you the national coach of the women's Argentinian rugby team? Are you holed up in Japan teaching kids English? Like, where are you in 10 years' time?
Who feckin' knows? I genuinely mean that, but that's how I want it as well.
Yeah.
And like I say, I've deliberately not committed to anything, so that the opportunities that come my way, I can be like, yes, I'll do that, or no, I won't. But like I say, I'm keen to get back to my languages and keen to see what doors will open for me, like through that. And as well, like I could very easily kind of ignore the languages thing now and just be like, oh, that's done in the past. But I know myself how much I love it, so I'm trying to stay committed to that part of me that knows how much I love it. So I'm still like really like keen to do that. I've been chatting to I played in Australia a few years ago, which was great, and I have a coach there who was kind of talking to me about going back out there, and I might take that opportunity and hopefully like get back to coaching like high level. Like I did some coaching for Harlequins Foundation, which I absolutely loved, and I love the charity side of rugby, and teaching through the values of rugby. I find that very easy. Because I truly believe in it. I feel like that's definitely a passion of mine that I could follow. But because it's the charity side of things, it's kind of people who are new to rugby. But I really, really want to stick with kind of high level elite stuff because I love it. And when I don't kind of follow that up, I miss it. So I missed it when I worked for the foundation in Harlequins. Although I loved the job, I was like, oh, I'm just missing that kind of high level of coaching and seeing the way the women's game is growing. There will be opportunities there in coaching. I also see myself as a director of rugby at some stage for some team or club or country, maybe, who knows. But I want it to be a kind of a slow enough process so that I can kind of be in many places as I can before then. I've got no commitments to like anywhere or anything. Like it's just my family that's at home in Cork. So this is the place where I'll always come back to. But other than that, honestly, don't know. Honestly, just don't know.
That's
Do you know that
how
I went
exciting is that though? How exciting is that? It's an
it
amazing
is.
thing.
It is. And like I went me and a few friends when Ireland played France in the men's Six Nations a few weeks ago, a few of us were like, okay, let's go to France to watch the game for the weekend. We flew to La Rochelle. Cheap flights, flew in and out of La Rochelle, had the best weekend. We were in like this tiny little like Stade Rochelet pub with all these little La Rochelle flags. We were like, oh, this would be a good place to watch rugby. Yeah. And they were like, who are you? What are you doing here? And I was the only one that could speak French. My French is terrible. And I was like leading us around this town. We had the best time. Do you remember that game? Like Ireland scored some really good tries, but France won it and France were unreal. But like every time Ireland scored, we were like up on the seats, like, yes, like driving the French fans crazy. So then whenever they scored, the roof would blow off. It was so good. Oh my God, it was so good. I had such a good weekend. But weirdly, this man came over and like started talking to us. It turned out he was the coach of the women's team in La Rochelle. And he was like, come back and play for us next year. He sent the minibus to come and collect us the next morning. We were like, oh, Jesus. He picked us up in the minibus, brought us out. We watched them play. He brought us on a tour of like La Rochelle's training facilities. And he was like, come back and play for us next year. It's like, these are the opportunities that I find myself being offered every now and then because I can chat to people really easily and I find myself, in being offered or opportunities like this appearing. So that's why I've kind of deliberately freeing myself up so that if something, really awesome comes along, which they do from time to time, I can take it. So maybe even I'll be in like in La Rochelle next year. Who knows? Like, I literally don't know. When we do part 2,
positions. Yeah, go for it. We'll do it from France.
No, when we do part 2, we should make a little box and like put all the predictions into it. Like, okay, I think this is going to happen. Then when we do part 2, we can see which have materialized and which haven't. Oh, but at that stage, I'm not like living on the street, like struggling for Wi-Fi.
That's
which
going to be
kind of already the case.
That's going to be a pretty big box with all the predictions that you could potentially end up doing.
That's true. Yeah.
And I've absolutely loved it. Now, I didn't prepare you for this bit, but at the end of these pods, I ask the guest to finish a sentence for me. So, and you can be as free and easy with this as you like. But for you, happiness is? Geez, that's the quietest you've ever been.
I want to get it right. Happiness is a sing-song in the dressing room.
Nice. Those are good moments, aren't they?
The best.
Those are the best. I love it. Thank you so much. I
Thank
have
you.
absolutely loved it. We've gone over an hour, which I said would possibly happen, and I reckon
I knew that was going to happen. I didn't tell you, but I knew.
Please come back from wherever you are, Argentina, France, Benidorm, Australia. Have passport, will travel. Pretty much that seems to be how it's going to go for you.
Thanks very much. Who knows? Who knows?
With a little stop at Murrayfield to watch some rugby and
listen
to the
yes, I'll
piper
put that in
and
the
sing a
calendar.
song. Yes,
Yes.
done. Thank you so much. I look forward to speaking to you again.
All right, Bruce. Thanks a mil.
Bye-bye.
Good luck.
That is absolute joy. If you're listening on a bus or wherever it is you listen to your podcasts, I hope that has brought a smile to your face, because that's absolutely what it's done for me. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, I hope you can see the passion coming through the screen. You can definitely hear it in her voice, but not just for the game of rugby, for people, for languages, for music, but all of those things. Although she said she likes being on her own, I'm pretty confident that will still be quite noisy when she's on her own, because she'll be talking to herself and answering back, I would imagine. She is a spectacular lady, and I really hope she'll come back and speak to us again. She also stands up for what she believes in, and for that, I think we can only admire her. If you've enjoyed it, you can listen on Apple, Acast, and Spotify. Please tell your friends, leave us a review. Nothing less than 5 stars, please. If you've not got anything nice to say, please don't say anything at all. A bit like Anna had advised you on the women's rugby game. You can watch on YouTube and Facebook, and give us a like, give us a follow, add some comments, tell us who you would like to be on. We've got more guests lined up, and all of them make me very excited and very humble that they're willing to come on this. We've had over 35,000 downloads. Can you believe it? Just a lot of nonsense, but I hope you've enjoyed it, because I certainly have. My name is Bruce Aitchison from the Happiness Is podcast, and my happiness is egg-shaped. I look forward to speaking to you all again very, very soon.